Hello to all my creepy cuties and cutie creepies out there. Today I'm going to do an extra special style challenge where I draw my character in the Lavendertowne art style. For those of you who might not know, Lavendertowne is a YouTuber and a comic artist known for her creepy, cute art style, where she draws unique characters that range from adorable to kinda terrifying. I've been a big fan of hers for years, and I thought I could learn a little bit more about her process by trying it for myself. Lavendertowne manages to balance YouTube with her comics, her streaming, and a bunch of other projects, and you kind of need to be able to work fast to be able to keep up with all of that. Now me, as an emerging YouTuber with a full-time job, I'm dying to learn how I can speed up my workflow. I have too many ideas and not enough time to make them all. So it's time to learn from somebody who's figured this out before me. I started off with a few sketches to brainstorm. My first attempt was interesting, but I kept trying, and with each face that I drew, I got closer and closer to seeing her art style. I was having a hard time adapting to these giant eyes, mostly because I spent so much time unlearning doing massive eyes in my artwork that I kind of just needed to go back to my roots a little bit in order to get comfortable with it, if that makes sense. Once I had a sense of where to place the eyes on the head, I had a much easier time. Let's just start with constructing the head. The head was a lot easier for me to visualize in her style. It kind of felt like taking a sphere and then just kind of sticking a wedge on the front of it to be her cheeks and her jaw. And then I placed the eyes, and I was almost thinking of it like 3D in my head of where they should go, as if I was trying to sculpt something out. I noticed the most common eye shapes she tends to use are either round or this almond shape. Now, my character has kind of more of a downturned puppy eye sort of shape, so I decided that using an egg shape would still get that cutesy roundness in her style, but it's still heavy on the bottom, and I think that keeps it a little bit droopy. Now, she tends to draw her eyes in one continuous shape rather than doing the two sets of lines that you tend to see in more anime style type art, but she'll sometimes use a lighter color to color the inside of the eye shape to give it that separation. So that's the route I'm gonna take when I'm doing her style. As far as the hair goes, I noticed that it tends to be very piecey and has blunt edges. The hair tends to look a little more fine and wispy rather than thick and heavy. She uses thinner lines on the inside of the piece to show the form, as far as which piece is in front of the other, and that's kind of where the shading gets added later. And she always starts with thin lines and then builds up the line with another pass. I noticed that she'll use those little lines to shade the curve, which I found was not only a good way to add more texture, but it also helped me remember which part of the hair was curving away from the light and made it so much easier to shade later. So I might have to start doing something similar to that myself. At first, I really struggled adapting the hair shape. I ended up moving the curve on her ponytail higher than in my original reference, but I decided I like the shape more, and I'm updating my base reference to match this. Over the years, I've learned a lot about color by watching Lavendertowne, so I was most excited for this part. Simple art styles give an opportunity to really push color and have some fun with it. I think she chooses really interesting combinations that I wouldn't have thought of, especially when it comes to flesh tones. I'm not quite as bold as she's gotten, but I would love to get there one day. I generally started by filling in the drawing with the hair color, mostly because Procreate tends to struggle with smooth fills. But if you select the outside of the line art, invert your selection, then fill that in, it tends to make a more seamless fill. Then I filled in the base colors with my character's palette, and I wanted to use a more interesting dynamic shadow color, so I chose this peachy tone on a multiply layer. I would normally adjust the hue of the multiply depending on the base color, but I thought this orange worked well enough to fit the entire drawing, and I noticed she tends to use a lot of oranges and warm tones in her shadows, which is really interesting, and it gives things sort of a cozy look. Cell shading was simple enough. Most of it was just adding depth to the hair and the eyes, and then I added an additional multiply layer with sort of this red color and my gouache brush to shade the form. This extra soft shading adds more visual interest by making it feel more like 3D instead of a flat cartoon. You get sort of that illustration vibe going on. I know she will usually take a solid color and then take the smudge tool with a watercolor brush attachment and use that to smear out the colors when she wants to blend them. But I just felt more comfortable using the gouache brush, and I've done that specifically to mimic her style in the past, so that's what I'm gonna do here. Highlights? Super easy. She just goes in with white and uses her pen tool and just psh, 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 and it's right there. Super simple. It became clear to me as I worked on these pieces that Lavendertowne shaped her style with the intention of drawing fast. She knows her foundations well enough that she doesn't need to correct too much as she works, and the wobbly lines that she's known for means she can draw quick and loose while still fitting her style and not having to worry about it looking like a mistake. The style is simple enough that she doesn't have to worry about any inaccuracies leading to the uncanny valley. Anybody who likes drawing in anime or like a superhero comic style knows that the margin of error is tiny to get these details right without it being weird. But overall, she spends less time nitpicking and can just move on to the next piece. And when you're drawing those comics, you just gotta keep going. I also noticed she uses as few brushes as possible. I only used 3 brushes while I was making these. I used a soft pencil for sketching, a pen for lines and cell shading, and a gouache brush for those softer details. It only took me a few hours to make 4 fully colored drawings, and I'm used to doing 1 drawing in that amount of time. I really want to learn how to make my own style faster, so I'm thinking of what I can do to streamline things and make that happen. But I realized as I was practicing in her style that the exaggerated eyes make drawing different expressions really fun. So I wanted to see if I could push expressions and really give some life and personality to my character. Another cool thing about the Lavendertowne style is how she uses posing to show her character's personality. So I wanted to challenge myself and see if I could do some sort of a high energy pose. It was a little bit of a struggle, but I think part of it is just needing to think about the character first, then the pose second, because posing is acting, and if you want your characters to feel believable, body language needs to be working with you instead of against you. So some things that I learned here about working faster are that having a solid foundation leads to fewer do-overs. Using as few tools and layers as possible just makes it go really quick, and that quirks are not mistakes. They actually make your art look a lot more human, and we really need that type of a vibe with all the AI out there these days. So art style is as much about what you like as it is about your goals with your art. My original plan for this video was to also draw her character in my style and talk about character design choices, but this video was long enough and I feel like I said what I need to. So here's the final drawings! I'd love to know what you think about my take on the Lavendertowne art style, and let me know if there's another style you'd like me to try. Thanks for being here again. Good to see you, and bye for now.